Well, the Colorado Buffaloes had their first preseason scrimmage, their first scrimmage under the direction of Carl Durrell. 90 minutes. It sounds like about 72 plays. And Brian, I don't know what your takeaway was from the Zoom interview with Carl Durrell and a couple players, but my takeaway was depth really shined through during the scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carl Durrell seems really happy with that. He mentioned how there's not a whole lot of separation between the first and second teams, which is what he wants. And really, a lot of the players, I think you asked him the question, who really shined today? And, he mentioned some of the veterans you expect, like Mustafa Johnson, Nate Lamon, but he really highlighted a lot of guys that, I don't know about you, but I was surprised to hear their names today. Jarek Broussard, Montana Lamonius Craig. Not that these guys aren't good players, but these are not who I would project as like the lead guys of their position. So, Nigel Bethel Jr. apparently played really well, and he said that Nigel has been showing up quite a bit the last week, making interceptions. So it's actually, if you're a Bucs fan, you got to kind of be happy to hear some of those names, these guys stepping up.
Now, part of that too is, Montana Lamonius Craig's not going against the first team defense, right? So
Right.
there's a little bit of that in there as well. But we've kind of speculated about that, that it seems like every coach that's taken over since Mike McIntyre has inherited a little bit more depth than the last coach. And now it hasn't shown itself in terms of consistent success. We all know that, but it does seem, there's the big question mark at quarterback looming over this program right now, but a lot of guys in a lot of spots that, they're, again, like Carl Durrell said, there's not a whole lot of separation between that first and second team. You talked about Jarek Broussard, and I think you had mentioned in your questioning with Carl Durrell, kind of a forgotten man because of that knee injury. He mentioned that he's going to be out of the backfield. He came in a little bit as a slot back, so we didn't quite know exactly what his role was going to be. And Carl Durrell seemed, to kind of indicate that today could be a real confidence booster for him, and that's great to hear.
Yeah, it really is. And Jarek, had the knee injury last year, so he was out all last year. And Carl Durrell said he did things today that don't look like a guy coming off a knee injury, or don't look like a guy that's thinking about or worried about his injury. So that's great to see. Jarek Broussard, obviously a talented kid. And like you said, I wasn't sure. I asked Durrell, could you see him playing out of the slot? And he said, no, he's out of the backfield. So those are some good things. And now we should mention that Durrell mentioned that Shad Clayton did not play today, that he's been nicked up, and so he did not participate in the scrimmage. That opens the door for a guy like Jarek Broussard to really shine. But it's good to see Jarek take that opportunity.
Mark Perry jumped on the Zoom interview with us as well. I asked him who stood out today, and he mentioned that Chris Miller is a guy that he's really developed good chemistry with. It sounds like they don't quite know who's going to play the star, who's going to play a traditional safety role. Chris Miller, obviously, we know, we've talked about this on a previous analysis video. He just needs to stay healthy. Mark Perry, in those photos, he looks like he's put on some good weight, and he was already pretty well put together player when he got on campus.
Yeah, he looked pretty good in the pictures I've seen, and sounds like he's played well. One thing that I took away from that, Adam, is he was asked whether he's more comfortable with the star or safety. He said he doesn't care. He's more comfortable everywhere. And we heard the same thing from Chris Miller earlier this week, and so that's good that you've got those guys that are both playing those spots, that they can be versatile and move around. I mean, you hope that's not just them saying that they really are comfortable, but a lot of times you do hear players that say, I'm more comfortable here than I am there. Tim Lynott a couple years ago, he was more comfortable just sitting at guard as opposed to moving around center to guard. So you like hearing that, I think, from Mark Perry and Chris Miller, that they're versatile. And like you said, as long as Chris is healthy, and as long as Mark takes that step that we expect, those two guys could be really good in that secondary.
And if they're not healthy, then you're concerned, right? They've got true freshmen backing them up in those spots. And as talented as Torrin Pittman may be, Will Anglin may be, we've seen it through this camp with this new staff taking over. It's the guys that have been in the program with that lack of spring ball that have really shined. And that defensively, there's no question your number one concern is depth and safety, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think for me, probably number two would be, that depth at corner as well, and kind of identifying who those top corners would be. But certainly the biggest concern is that depth at safety, because you can afford to lose a couple corners and still have some talent there. Whereas, I'm not saying there's not talent at safety, but you're right. If you lose Mark Perry and or Chris Miller, it's like, well, who plays? Now you're looking at okay, does Jalen Stryker move back to safety? Are we moving some guys around here? And you never want to get into that game. But you hope with a 6-7 game season that they can stay healthy.
Vontae Chenault scored a touchdown today. I'm looking forward to when we can get Darren Chiaverini on that Zoom call to find out where that pecking order is, because we've talked a lot about Daniel Arias and Maurice Bell, and obviously Katie Nixon's there as well, Dimitri Stanley. How much is Vontae Chenault going to play? He had the off-the-field issue this year. We don't quite know if he's going to be out for a game or two because of that, but it certainly seems he's been prominent in those photo galleries that are sent to us. So
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see how big his role is going to be on this team this year.
I am too, and the last time I talked to Darrell about Chenault was shortly after his his DUI back in June or July. It was July. I think it was after 4th of July weekend. And Darrell did tell me that it'll be handled internally and it'll be some game suspension, and he wouldn't tell me how long. So he is going to miss at least I believe a game. I'd be surprised if it's less than a game. So I'm curious to see how many he gets. But yeah, you're right. Every day we get those photo galleries, like, oh, there's another picture of Vontae Chenault, and looking pretty good there. So I think a lot of fans are excited about him, and no matter how many games he gets, I'm excited to see what he does. But you're right, that pecking order at receiver, Lamonius Craig showing up. We've seen Brendan Rice in some of those photo galleries as well. Katie Nixon, Daniel Arias. Arias has been very prominent in those photo galleries as well, and looks really good, I think, in those photos. So he's the guy I'm most excited about, I think.
And I think Darrell said, what did he say? It was the receiver position is the deepest on the team. He said something along those lines.
Yeah, and it's interesting how he's kind of come around on that. I don't know if you picked up on this, but one of his earlier interviews when he was asked about receivers, like, well, they haven't been with me. We'll see what they can do. And the last few times I've heard him talk about receivers, he really raves about them. So I think as he's gotten to know these guys and see them on the field, he's looked at them and said, okay, these guys are actually pretty good. He seems to be pretty excited. Where you would think, him being a longtime receivers coach, he'd be a little harder on that group, and maybe he is, but he really likes the talent there.
Of course, every fan watching this right here wants to know about the quarterback battle, and I don't think we could really decipher anything based on the comments of Carl Jarrell today. He said both Sam Neuer and Tyler Lytle looked good. He praised Brendan Lewis. Again, I'm assuming that's against the third team defense mostly. So I would assume it's still between Sam and Tyler, but it didn't sound like there was any separation made today.
Yeah, at least none that he wants to reveal at this point. It certainly sounds like I took away that it's still the two guys. And I'm sure that mentioning Brendan, not saying that he didn't play well, but it was probably in part calculated on his part that, hey, let's boost him up as well. So you like to hear that all three quarterbacks did some good things, though. And I imagine they want to see some separation here soon. Maybe we'll get that with the second scrimmage next week. But, sounds like right now it's still neck and neck.
All right. They have the day off on Sunday, so we will be back with more analysis on Monday.